Hi everyone, welcome to Finding Joy in the Mundane. I am your host, and this is my co-host, Lauren. And I'm really excited because we're doing this together and we're talking about hard things and God all the same time. And I think that it's been life-giving to both of us, doing
Very
this.
much so.
So if it's life-giving to you, that's amazing. So today, we're going to be talking about addiction and mental health. And I know that's a hard subject for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hard subject for us to even decide to speak on because all of the triggers and all of the stigma that goes with it. But we thought because of that, we should talk about it.
Yeah, makes it that much more important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are not professionals. We are not anything like that. So don't take our advice for anything other than two people who love God, who are trying to walk this earth and live with mental health and deal with it on a daily basis. So, yeah.
Here goes.
Here it goes.
So let's talk about, addictions and mental health. I mean, one doesn't necessarily stem from the other all the time. They can kind of interchange, right? I mean,
yeah.
Mental health issues can cause addictions, and addictions can cause mental health issues, right?
Yeah. I think that's why it's so hard. Because to start off with, when you have mental health issues, there's an imbalance. There's some sort of chemical imbalance within you that you want to correct. And yes, there are medications that could correct those. It's just taking that step. And if you haven't, then you're going to try to self-medicate. And you're going to try to do whatever it takes to make you feel better despite these emotions, these reactions that you're having. So honestly, I think self-medicating is such a natural thing to do.
Yeah, especially if you've went through a trauma.
Yes!
You're going to try to numb that pain. And
yes!
Try to forget. So you might, drink a little bit or smoke a little bit.
Anything.
Or,
Anything that would numb that pain. And people will have their judgments on that, but they're just trying to live their life. They're not trying to become drug addicts. They're not trying to be these people. They're just trying to survive and numb and all these things every day so that they can just live.
Right. I don't think anybody that, you pass on the street that's, strung out on drugs or alcohol, I don't think any of them started out planning on that being their goal,
Oh, their life.
Yeah, their life.
And I think that's why when we do see that we need to have compassion, because it is something that they just started out just trying to control, and it ended up controlling them.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to get their life back. And whenever you have that label on you as an addict or as a person struggling with this, then the whole world just sees you as this awful person.
Yeah.
I will just say that because when we talk about addicts, they're not awful people in any way. They're actually lovely people. But when we talk about addicts, there's a negative connotation. And it's because we think, they're people without self-control or people who are just self-indulgent.
Yeah.
And they're not.
No, maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they were hurt and became a little bit too reliant on a substance or a person even, or an action. It's not always a substance,
It's
it can
not.
be a person, it can be sex, it can be,
It could be work.
Yeah, you can be addicted to work.
There are so many people addicted to their work that...
Because they don't want to go home at night.
Because they don't want to go home at night. They don't want to feel that loneliness.
Yeah. Now, given that's different than a quote-unquote dictionary, addiction. I think that's if you're actually addicted to, a substance or, that chemical release when you're, having sex or whatever, is that different than when you're working? Is there a different chemical imbalance, or is it more similar than we think?
I think it's a lot more similar than we think.
Yeah.
But the outward appearance of it is different.
Okay.
So when you see someone addicted to meth, you can tell on their bodies. Their body is run down. They're starting to have boils. they're like really agitated, they can't take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at someone addicted to their work. After a while, they're run down.
Mm-hmm.
They can't seem, they're very agitated.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to get up in the day. They don't want to get dressed or anything because their work has become such a huge part of their life that's all they know.
That's all that brings them joy.
That's all that brings them joy.
Yeah, that is it serotonin?
Yeah.
Is that the hormone that releases
Dopamine and serotonin.
Dopamine, yeah.
So serotonin, apparently, I learned this, that lives in your stomach. Yes! And that's why eating disorders or just whenever you like have a thing of ice cream feels good. Because like you're activating that serotonin. So like so much research has been done on just the way your body like processes these different chemicals that make us feel good. And that's all we want to do at the end of the day. I think that's all what addicts, any human, wants to be at the end of the day. Just feel good throughout the day, be able to just be who they are, and then just go to sleep.
Yes. That's all anybody wants.
Literally, that's what anybody wants. And like saying it even out loud, like it doesn't seem like too much to ask.
Yeah, but when you've been through something like we've talked about in the past couple weeks, trauma, when you've been through these hard things, like these traumatic experiences, when someone has crossed these boundaries that no one should have ever crossed, maybe they've abused you or they've, physically or sexually just cross these boundaries. I mean, it's not as easy as getting up and being yourself and then going back to sleep at night. You can't necessarily do that as easily as somebody who hasn't
never experienced that.
Yeah, who hasn't gone through that. So, sometimes people, search out those things to help them forget and to help numb the pain.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so many songs, about numbing the pain and, drinking their pain away and what's that, whiskey lullaby. It's everybody feels it and and everybody, seeks that numbness at some point in their lives, and it's kind of, what do you do to kind of get out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I had like a hard time with my sleeping and having nightmares because my dreams became flashbacks and I would do anything to stop them. And I didn't care what it would be as long as it stopped that from replaying in my head. And that's why so many people like go to other things to help them like cope to begin with. Like you never go to that if you're like satisfied. If you're doing okay, like you wouldn't feel like the need to like shoot up something.
Right.
There's always some sort of pain that you're trying to numb, like you said. And honestly, I think what's hard is that part of being human is having pain.
Yeah, that's part of this life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to like come to peace in that. That like, even if it wasn't for my trauma, even if all of that was taken away, the everyday, like seeing the news, like seeing the brokenness around us, like that causes pain.
And that's not to negate what somebody goes through.
No.
Not at all. I mean, it's just like, it's kind of to find solace in it.
Yeah.
It's like, we are all experiencing pain and like, you are not alone.
Yeah.
And these people that, experience the worst of pains, the worst of traumas, even they are not alone and don't have to find themselves alone in addiction either, right?
Yeah. And I think what addiction is so hard is that in the beginning it finds that relief, and then over time it becomes its own trauma. Like it becomes its own enemy.
Right. You become your own worst enemy.
You become your own worst enemy with it because like once the first time, the second time, third time, fifth time, whatever, it gave you relief. But then it's like you start craving that relief. And you need that relief. And you're willing to give up other parts of your life to gain that.
Right.
To the point where after like 20 times or whatever,
100
times, you've now given up everything in your life to have that. And then you come to a point where it's like that's all you have left.
Yeah, you start cutting people off. I mean, maybe, you choose to, like, I know, like, I've heard stories of parents who will skip out on visiting their kids who are in state custody to go, you know, shoot up with their boyfriend or whatever, to go pick up drugs or you know, God knows what they're doing. And they'll miss visitation that they only get like once a week or once every other week or once a month, and they cut that out.
Yeah.
You know, they lose that time with their kids. They, you know, lose that money, you know, and money's few
and do you
far
know what's
between.
funny within that?
Yeah.
Is that because I have worked now with parents that have done that, is that oftentimes, more than not, these parents will do those drugs so that way they could go to these parent visits, so that they feel like they could be themselves, or that they could be more present, or that they could be happy for their kids.
Felt like they needed that drug or
to
that
even be
substance
there.
to get there.
And that's the thing that kept them from being there.
They needed it to get there, but really it kept them from getting there. Wow.
And that happens over and over again, where it's like you're trying to get there in your life, you're trying to show up, and like you feel like you need this to show up, and then it's the thing that keeps you from showing up.
It's that mental disconnect.
And you feel like every time that you can do better, you will do better.
Next
you will
time.
take less.
Next time.
You will do whatever it takes. And at that point, it has more control over you than you do.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, your kids start to think differently of you. Your family starts to think differently of you. Maybe you lose your job.
100%.
You know, you lose your car. You know, your money's going to everything but your bills. And so maybe you end up homeless at that point, you know. And that's I think that's the case for a lot of the homeless population in our area is, you know, it is drugs.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, some people that I know, like, their parents are on the streets for drugs.
Yeah.
And they've had to make the conscious decision to keep their grandchildren away from them because, you know, so then you lose not only your child, your grandchild.
Yeah.
And you know, life with that. It's just really sad, and, you know, all because you went through a trauma and now you're addicted, and it's just really sad. It's just so sad.
And like, you don't even have to go through a trauma. It's just you have a pain that you want to numb.
Right.
And like we said before, where it's like the human experience is pain.
Yeah.
And I think that's one part of a beautiful thing. Because we experience pain, we know what joy is, we know what peace is. But to get through the pain, you need something.
Yeah, you gotta have a proper coping mechanism.
You have to have a proper release or a proper strength. And to me, it's always been God, like the Lord. And I need to rely on Him more and more every day to help me get through that.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, like, I need to do so much better. Like, I fail every day at doing that. I mean, like, I know we both do. Like, we just, you know, we were talking
It's just
before
so
we started
easy.
this,
It's
like,
just so easy to turn to these other things.
worldly things.
Because, like, they're immediate.
Yeah.
And they're instant.
Yeah.
And it's like you feel that instant relief. And what I've been learning is that, okay, I feel instant relief for 5 minutes.
Well, we live in this world of instant gratification.
We do.
I mean,
we do.
instant gratification.
Instant. And like that has been our worst enemy.
It
like
is.
instant gratification, because we don't live in an instant world.
No.
Like we live a whole life, and good things like happen within time. And we need to be able to withstand the anxieties, our thoughts, everything that go with it.
Yeah.
But we can't, because we're used to instant gratification.
Yeah.
So if we don't get it, we will find something that will give it to us. And that makes me question, is instant gratification good?
Not always.
I don't think any. Think of a time when you had instant gratification. Has it always been ultimately good for you?
I mean, no. I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
But
no.
in reality.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like, you know, if you can instantly, like, I think of, like, emails. Like, I'm more productive when I can, like, instantly email somebody back, and they can instantly email me back, and, like, I can get stuff done and move on with my life. And,
It feels so good.
yeah, I can check
It's
that off.
done. It's over with.
Yeah, be done with it, move on to the next task. But then, you know, you think of, like, the grand scheme of things, of, like, instant gratification and the, you know, the concept of it, and it doesn't teach patience, you know, and it doesn't teach that resilience that you want to have, you know, in the face of trouble, like we're talking about, in the face of pain, when you're expected instant gratification, like I picture this child having like a temper tantrum when they don't get their way.
And you give them their candy.
Yes, and that is the world we live in.
Yeah.
And you know that's instant gratification, and so I guess grand scheme probably not a good thing, but
well, like I think of Mia.
Mm-hmm.
She asks for candy every day, multiple times in the day.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to tell her, we have to wait. And then oftentimes I give up because she is so persistent. And I have to appreciate that persistence, man. But like, she wears me down to the point where I just give her candy and then she goes away and she's all happy. But at the end of the day, like, I feel bad because I'm not helping her grow that muscle to where it can withstand pain, where she can withstand the unknown and withstand waiting for what she wants. Mm-hmm. And I really do think it's a muscle where, like, you're able to do something and then just wait for it.
Yeah.
And, like, it causes everyone anxiety waiting.
Yeah.
No matter what. And if we don't have that muscle built because we've been given everything so instantly, when we are having to wait for something, then we can't stand it. Mm-hmm. It's too much.
Yeah.
To the point where we need something else to, like, mediate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus just growing that muscle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it grows by having you sit there and you wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember my parents used to tell me that when the computer and the internet was first invented, mm-hmm. for every website you chose, you had to wait 5 minutes for it to load. 5 minutes.
Is that true?
100% yes.
Oh my gosh.
And I looked at them like, then why would you sit there?
Why?
What is worth 5 minutes working? Like, at that point, it's not even worth it.
Why would you?
But to them, it wasn't that fast at all. To them, they were just happy that the page uploaded.
It wasn't that slow. Yeah.
Like, because they didn't have it happen within a second. They never had anything to begin with.
Yeah, this was brand new for them, so this was fine. This is
so,
all they
like, they were willing to wait the 5 minutes. Because they were waiting 5 minutes for something that was new and, like, that will give them that kind of freedom to where they can get something more out of it.
Yeah.
But now we take that for granted. Mm-hmm. If I had to wait 5 minutes, I will not even wait 5 minutes.
No.
Not even if I had to. I would just say, I'm not going to wait 5 minutes for a thing to load. At that point, I would just, like, turn off my phone and return it back on because something is broken.
I give up.
I give up. And, like, knowing that, I'm just like, wow, like, we really, really have it kind of twisted.
Yeah. But do you think that's kind of made us, as a society, more susceptible to that tendency to be addicted to things?
Yes.
Like, because we are in that mindset of instant gratification and instant numbing and like, oh, I don't want to feel this anxiety or this pain or this depression or any of this negative energy.
Yeah.
You know? And like I remember when I was going through like a really difficult season in my life, like I did not want to feel that. I did not want to feel.
And when you have the option to not have to,
it's
like, hard to say no.
It's like, yeah, peace out. I don't want to feel this. I will do, you know, just about anything to not feel this way. Yeah. And, you know, and that's why in some ways it's good to kind of, you know, find ways to get rid of that pain. You know, healthy ways. Let me preface that with healthy ways. And I think that's where you can like get outside and, you know, find different ways of coping with things, I guess. Yeah. You know, not substances and not people and not, you know, things that are unhealthy or things that might hurt you or get you hurt. You know, but maybe getting outside, like when you get outside and you like get into the grass and feel the fresh air, like that releases that dopamine and that serotonin, right?
Nature is like, so good for us. It's beyond belief.
Like seasonal depression is a thing.
100%.
Like
we need the sun.
Like
just as plants need the sun, we need the sun.
Yes.
We need to feel that grass on our toes, whatever. And you know what's really, I think, has hurt us the most are our phones.
The blue light on these things?
Forget the blue light. It's the fact that we can go on anything to get that serotonin, to get that dopamine. If we're feeling down, we can just search up anything that will bring us up.
Those reels are so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so funny. I can sit for
TikTok
hours.
is so addictive for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's because it gives us that numbing feeling that drugs give us, where it's like you're out of this world, like you're no longer here, you're just like in this world that other people created, and it feels good,
and then you forget everything,
and that was the point of it, is that you forget. But then when you're forgotten for hours and hours at a time,
it's unhealthy.
You miss out on your life.
It's the same thing as popping a pill.
Same thing. Whether it's in your head, like you dozing off, daydreaming, or it's on your phone, just scrolling. Either way, you're not living your life. Either way. And like the hard part is taking that away, putting that away, no longer having your phone for an complete afternoon or for the rest of the day. Like, you know me, I'm really bad with my phone. And that's part of me to combat that. It is. And then that's another part of my ADHD. So I may have to thank that for it, because like my mind can't have that much stimulus. Otherwise, like I feel it being unhealthy. But like I see in other people, they can't get enough. And I don't understand that because like I get overwhelmed. But like seeing them constantly be attracted and wanting this kind of stimulus, wanting this kind of drug, wanting this kind of thing, like it looks and seems exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who has been on their phone all day is exhausted.
100%.
Because your mind is still processing it.
Yeah.
Like, just how, like, when we were young, like, our minds are processing things. Your mind is still processing all that information, or trying to at the very least.
Yeah.
Process all that information all at once. And you're just, like, scrolling. Can you imagine your brain be like, okay, we're 1 second at a time?
Yeah. And, like, which is important, which is not.
What
and,
is
like,
real, what is not.
Yeah, and, like, you know, trying to keep up with what do I keep? Like, I'm thinking of, like, Inside Out and, like, the guys in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Like, trying to figure out, okay, which do I file away and which do I throw in the dumpster? And, like, am I going to keep this real or am I going to throw away what I learned in algebra class? Like, you know. Like,
yeah.
And we're so off topic right now.
No, I think we're fully on topic. Because this is all what, like, addiction and mental health is. Because, like, it's what we're filling our minds and what our coping skills with.
Yeah.
Because if your coping skill is just scrolling on your phone, then it's not gonna feel good at the very end of the day, like, to after all this time. Because either way, like, at one point you just want relief. Like, you don't want garbage in your head. You don't want to be thinking, you don't want to be doing anything.
Yeah.
But the only way to turn it off is by turning off your phone
Literally
and going outside.
Going outside.
Going outside.
Digging into the word. You know, like, that's something, like,
reading.
Yes.
Like, reading.
Yeah.
I used to hate reading so much. Like, so much.
Used to?
True. Just because, you know, I didn't grow up reading. I didn't. But I remember, like, even when we first got adopted, like, my mom would put on Unfortunate Events on, like, tape. And, like, we would listen to it. And it was the first time I ever even heard of it. And it was, like, it was the best part of our car ride.
I loved that series. Series of Unfortunate
Yes.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, they were my people. I'm like, yes, series of unfortunate events. Yes. Those are my people. When it's just one thing after another. And it's like, and that's what really got me into reading. And then I got into the Twilight. I read the whole series.
Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Oh, Team Edward.
All the way.
All the way. Just because, you know, I love that, like, true love, you know, that concept of love at first sight.
Jacob.
I know, but, like, you know, I have love at first sight with Sam, so I'm sitting here loving it. Anywho.
The werewolf energy.
The werewolf energy. Although I did like that werewolf energy hashtag.
Okay, we're having too much fun with this episode. Oh my gosh. Okay.
But like we were able to just experience that all together. Mm-hmm. And we were able to talk about that after, like, during dinner, versus me sitting on my phone just scrolling and then asking, like, hey, what have you learned today? And you're like, well, there's Gigi, there's Kim, there's this, there's that, and there's this, and no one can relate because they weren't on your phone like scrolling through the same exact things, so, like, how are you supposed to have connection? You can't really truly connect with somebody through your phone. No, not really. No. And even though it has the best benefits, because, you know, my family's overseas, most of them, and I get to speak to them. Yeah. And they get to contact me anytime. Mm-hmm. but the disadvantages that it's become doesn't outweigh that.
No.
Because at this point, I would rather write a letter and it would be almost just as suffice.
Yeah.
Because it's just me sending the text and then receiving the text. It's just sending a letter and getting a letter.
Maybe not, as quickly, but...
Not as quickly, but it's still the same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And, my mom isn't texting fast, It's not like I'm getting it anyway.
That's true.
So it's like, at the grand scheme of things, it's hurting more than it's giving.
Yeah.
But because of that instant gratification, we can't let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And having that affect our mental health, it affects the way we see ourselves. It affects the way we see people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not giving us instant gratification the way the phone is, then we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Or if they're like, say we're not necessarily addicted to our phones, say we're addicted to a substance, like going back to that, like say if somebody is anti that, say if they're like trying to take it away from us.
Oh,
you're out of my life. You're against me. You hate me.
Or even just judging them for it.
Yes, yeah. And definitely, you definitely don't want somebody that's an enabler to be, in your circle. You also don't want somebody who's also going to be very hateful, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's a very fine line to be towing.
Yeah.
Because, you don't want them to feel judged, but you don't want them to feel encouraged.
Right.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that when they're trying to help people who they see are addicted.
Yeah.
And even though I've never been actually addicted to anything, I have been reliant on different substances throughout my life to help me get through whatever season.
Yeah.
And the minute someone tried to take that away from me,
you'd go insane.
I would go insane because it wasn't their right. It wasn't their right to take it away. But now that I'm a peer support who works with people with addiction and mental health issues, because I experienced people just taking it away, it takes away their autonomy.
Right.
It takes away their sense of who they are. And even though that shouldn't be the case, it is. And realizing that what should, could, whatever doesn't matter, and to meet people where they're at is the best thing. So now I just meet people where they're at within their addiction. If they're doing it every day, 3 times a day, then I would say, what if you did it just 2.5 times to see if you can actually handle the half?
Yeah.
And if they can't, then we will continue working on whatever we need to work on in order to get them to that half.
Yeah.
And they know that. They know that I'm not going to sit here and just take it away. They just know that I'm there to help them because they want to lessen it. I don't think anyone who's been in addiction doesn't want to be addicted.
Right. If they can see that they're addicted.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all these different aspects of addiction and mental health, they coincide together. Because if you're struggling mentally, you're going to want to self-medicate. And then that in itself could lead to addiction.
Yeah.
So it's this circle of...
It's this whole cycle. Yeah.
It is this whole cycle. So this is why it's so important to have compassion on people with addiction and to be able to walk with them through it and to show them that there are multiple ways to be able to handle the pain in life, that one thing can't just fix it. And the more we're able to explore those different ways, especially when it comes to God, the more healing and satisfaction that we will get.
So thank you so much for watching. This is Joy in the Mundane, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.